Almost every single person that asks me weight loss advice would benefit from just doing this one thing. Mark Bell, why are you always dieting? It's one of the questions I hear in the comments. I think it's important to, live by particular standards. And for me, coming down from weighing over 330 pounds as a competitive powerlifter years ago, where I squatted over 1,000 pounds, bench pressed over 800, and deadlifted over 750, that was my goal, was to get as big and strong as I possibly could. But then at some point, I have to admit, I also got addicted to food. And with those cravings for ice cream and peanut butter cups and basically mixed macros of fats and carbohydrates together, after doing that for such a long period of time, it was very difficult for me to just like snap out of it. I couldn't really snap out of it. And so slowly but surely over a long period of time, with the help of many friends and many mentors, Jesse Burdick being one of the pivotal people to actually help me lose weight, because Jesse and I came up with some, what I think are very reasonable ways for like a fat guy to lose weight. And I think that is something that has attracted a lot of people to the information that I have, is that they know I have a fat guy mindset, and they know my affinity for peanut butter cups and Ben & Jerry's and just, look, good sandwiches and pizza. Like I really love all that stuff. And still to this day, I love food. And something I started to think about over the last couple of years was how much time can be wasted when you're addicted to food, because food is time. The more fascinated you are with food, the more time you're gonna have to spend on the treadmill, the more on the treadmill of life, trying to figure out how to burn some of those calories, whether it's an actual literal treadmill or whether it's you going in the gym and doing a bunch of these and a bunch of these and a bunch of those and a bunch of squats and everything else. Truly, many of us could afford to lift a lot less and exercise a lot less if we just learned how to eat less. But holy cow, can that be really difficult once you get tethered to food? And for those of us that are in like the strength game or kind of performance, you're just thinking like, that your food is so attached to the performance, right? Like you can't just go, you could just go and like work out, and you could go and have an awesome workout, but you rather be like fueled for it, right? And then you potentially have a much better workout. And when I was powerlifting, I remember, really thinking about it as like my job. My wife would go to bed, I give her a big old smooch before she'd go to bed, and I was like, I still gotta eat, because I need more calories, because at the time I weighed like 260, and I wanted to weigh 270 and 280 and so on. And the dieting that I was doing then, that was a particular diet, but it was to gain weight, and it was in the particular realm of powerlifting. Because in powerlifting, the more that you weigh, it can sometimes potentially get easier for you to lift heavier weights. Not all the time, always, but for most people. And what I ended up finding out was that my sweet spot was actually 290 pounds. It was a good 40 pounds prior to me weighing 330 pounds. But I didn't know that until I pushed all the way to being the fat bastard that I was at 330 pounds. So dieting, or like some nutritional protocol, has been par for the course for me since I started when I was 13 years old. I'm now 48, so you do the math. That's many years of being on some sort of protocol for nutrition. Now, I think what you guys might be calling out is not necessarily that I'm on some sort of nutritional protocol, because everyone's on some sort of nutritional protocol, whether it's Stan Efferding or whether it's Milos Sarkev, someone who's retired from bodybuilding for many years, or whether it's Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler or Chris Bumstead. Like, all those guys have retired. Dorian Yates. These are retired bodybuilders, but they still adhere to some sort of protocol so that they stay in shape, right? But what you're not really seeing from them, but what you're seeing from me, is perpetual weight loss. And it is to the point where it's like, well, hell, what in the F are you doing, Smelly? Like, what's going on over there? Have you lost your marbles? Well, I haven't lost my marbles. I actually believe that you can never be too rich and you can never be too skinny. So I'm going for it. No, in all seriousness, I have a goal I want to weigh 200 pounds. And some of that has to do with some of my goals with running. I want to be able to be more mobile. I want to be able to be more fit. I want to be able to sprint better. I also want to be able to stop better. I want to be able to have more agility. I want to be able to look like I can go out for a pretty good pass and actually reel it in and be able to burn a defensive back or something like that, you know? Those are some of my goals, and they're just fun. They're just for me. But if I just weigh less, those things will be a lot easier. And my goal to run the 400 meter in under 60 seconds, could I do it at 230 or 220? Yeah, maybe, but I'm gonna be like extremely gassed, and that's gonna really tax my heart and tax my body. If I just instead, you know, weigh around 200, and then when it comes time to actually get that 400 meter going, then maybe I'll weigh 185 or 190 and like go and do it and have it, I don't wanna say have it be easy, but it should be a lot easier if I weigh, you know, 190 or 200 versus if I weigh 220 or 230, right? I have some information from some of my friends that are way into this stuff. They're way into the VO2 max, anaerobic capacity. He's let me know that you can get almost like a 14% increase in your VO2 max when you lose X amount of weight. I want to say maybe he said around 20 pounds. I think that was kind of the mark. So that is why I'm perpetually always trying to lose weight, is because most of my goals match up with weight loss. And so I'm going to continue to lose weight. Now I am at a weird spot because as of this morning, I weighed 210 pounds. Body fat wise, I do need to get it tested just to see, but it's probably 8% or something like that. It might be as high as 9% and it might be as low as like 7, but it's certainly not 12 and it's certainly not 5%. I would like to maybe officially, you know, get like a 6% body fat reading would be kind of fun. The hard thing with that is to try to, because I could tweak the muscle mass, and if I bring my muscle mass up and just stay about the same, then my body fat percentage would technically still be lower. So there's like ways to manipulate that and ways to work on that. But I'm not gonna really probably get a test done until I feel like I'm like just hardcore shredded to the bone. I also have had this other goal where I've wanted to comfortably fit into stuff that's a size 34. And I do fit into 34s pretty good, but my ass is kind of big. So it's kind of hard for me to always fit into like 34 pants and 34 shorts and stuff like that. And I'd still like to up top be like an XL or wear a 2XL up top. So kind of disproportionate body, I guess, you know, have a little bit bigger in the shoulders and zoomed in a little bit on the waist. And not only do I want to like bring the waist in, which I think I've done a good job of, but I kind of have this sort of squarish shape, and I want to be able to kind of carve that out. And that's why I've been doing a lot more like back exercises and stuff. And what I'm going to be moving into over the next couple weeks and months and years is going to sort of reshape my body. It's going to take a while, because even when I was powerlifting, I just kind of had this sort of straight down build. I never had the build where, you know, my gut all of a sudden went like boom, like way out like that. Because even when I was powerlifting, I was still, you know, training for hypertrophy and still consuming tons of protein. My arms, just without a pump, were like 22. My biceps and my triceps ended up growing and being pretty good size, but it was just like fat, you know, fat and muscle kind of all combined. And my neck, my traps and all that stuff were really big. So even though I was big around the waist, I was big up top as well. And over the years, I've been trying to draw that in. And you're not going to ever really, it's impossible, you know, for someone to like get up over 300 pounds and then shrink down and hold all their muscle mass. Like that's just not going to happen. With PEDs, without PEDs, with growth hormone, without growth hormone, it really doesn't matter how you try to do it. It's going to be like an impossible task to some degree. So, I mean, that's really why I'm always on a diet. But what I said in the beginning and what I need to address is I was addicted to food. And when you're addicted to food, you need some guardrails and you need some guidelines. I've mentioned this before. There's so many people that I know, almost every single person that asks me weight loss advice, would benefit from just doing this one thing. And the one thing would be to find some sort of nutritional protocol that just allows them to be consistent every day, but doesn't feel so restricted that they end up binging every 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, 28 days. Because most people that I know that struggle with their weight loss, they just F up here and there and they just like sabotage themselves. Some people do like minor sabotage, like they'll sabotage themselves a couple times a week with a little drink or a little this or a little that. It doesn't sound that bad, but it's enough sabotage to where it doesn't really allow for the progress they're looking for. But so many other people that I know, they sabotage themselves by being a little bit restrictive for a handful of days and then really like, looking for that big payoff. They're like, all right, time to pay up. It's time to pay up, time to pay our debts. We were in a caloric deficit and now it's time to eat. And that's why for me personally, I've always coached against, I've always tried to steer people away from the calorie counting because yes, I understand what calorie counting can do. I do understand it can help people be more accountable. So if you're one of those people, then I got to surrender and just say, hey, if it's going to work for you, then I'd love for you to utilize it. But if you're calorie counting and then every 7 days you're binging, and then you're also not counting, like who counts their calories when they binge? Only like a real psychopath would do that, right? And that's where I would like to see people actually count their calories, because imagine if every time that you binged, you only binged on like 600 calories. You would never get fat doing that. You just binge on 600 calories, like, even if you did it like once a day, like 500-600 calories. I guess if you did that once a day, okay, maybe you're gonna get fat, because I guess the people that are overeating, some of the studies show that they're actually only overeating by like 100 calories, which is pretty interesting. But anyway, if you just binged every couple days and you only had an additional 500 or 600 calories, I don't think it would yield a huge negative impact on you. And if you were to record it, I think that would be a good idea. But again, I don't really love the calorie counting, because what I love more so is to teach people about food choices. And one of the reasons through sugar fasting and through some of the things I found out more recently, and what I've been sharing on the Single Digit Body Fat series the entire time, you are what you eat. And if you want to be single digit body fat, it's probably as simple as eating things that have less than 10% fat in them. You want to be 9%? You want to be 9% body fat? Have your food only tally up to be 9% fat every day for a while, for 6 months, for a year. See what happens. You're going to get very lean, even with a lot of carbohydrates in there. You could probably have 400, 500, 600 grams of carbohydrates and still be totally fine. If you went way over your if you went way over your carbohydrates every single day, and you do that perpetually, okay, you're not going to have the weight loss that you need. But you kind of get the idea. Anyway, the reason why I'm always dieting, the reason why I'm always doing this stuff is to give myself some guardrails. And what I found over the years, I have many different systems to make sure that I'm headed in the right direction. Almost like a bowling alley with bumpers on the side, like little kids use. Having those bumpers there so you don't end up with these gutter balls all the time is really important. Also, understanding how to throw yourself and serve yourself an underhand pitch. What's going to be the easiest way for me to stay on my diet? Sometimes the easiest way for you to stay on your diet is to go very low carb. Sometimes the easiest way for you to stay on your diet is to go more on the high carb side. And sometimes it's so inconvenient to stick to your plan or stick to your diet that you would be better off just trying to maybe eat a little bit less or eat a little bit more casual. Let's say everyone goes for gelato. You're on vacation, like that's what happened to me a couple times. I just ate some gelato. That's not a big deal. I just got one scoop and I ate like, I don't know, 3/4 of it. I was like, that's pretty good. Checked it out. That's it. Another night, I got a 2-scooper. I saved the rest for my wife because she wasn't with me on the walk that I went with my kids. And we got some gelato and brought the rest back to her, and she ate some of it too. So sometimes it's important to, if you're in a particular restaurant in a particular predicament and you're at a breakfast place, well, that's really easy to keto because now I can get a couple whole eggs, I can get some sausage, I don't have to worry about it, I don't have to think about it. Okay, I'm not gonna have the toast, I'm not gonna have the pancakes, I'm just gonna do this, right? The other option would be, I'm gonna have mixed macros, but I'm just gonna eat less. So everyone always needs guardrails. It's not just me that needs a diet, it's not just me that needs rules, but we all can benefit from having rules. Even when I was away for 2 weeks, there was a smoothie place right next to the apartment that I was in. So not every day, but about 3 or 4 days while I was out there, I still used a sugar fast. Because I'm like, there's a smoothie place right here. I like smoothies. I'm gonna go on the walk in the morning, maybe have a coffee before I leave the apartment, and I'm gonna swing by that smoothie place, suck down a smoothie and kind of start my day. And then, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours later, we would eat lunch and I would sort of eat whatever. I would eat kind of whatever we were gonna eat in Ireland. I wasn't really super particular about my food, but I also brought protein powder with me because, as you guys mentioned, Mark Smelly Bell is always on a diet. And I don't think there's anything bad about that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. One thing that I'm not doing, and one thing that I would never really intentionally do, is submarine my calories forever. So that's something that I'm not doing. That is something that maybe I've done a little bit of through intermittent fasting. I was messing around with intermittent fasting, some dry fasting. I was messing around with some different things, some keto. And yeah, maybe my calories went a little low for a little while and I sunk in and just look a little weird. But anytime I ever did any of that, it just never really felt right, never really clicked with me. And even though I wasn't counting calories, my calories were definitely restricted. I can sort of tell. I didn't like the way that felt. So that's one of the reasons why I shifted more recently to a lower fat style diet, because with the lower fat diet, I can smash myself with tons and tons of energy. I can consume tons and tons of carbohydrates. People don't like me talking about sugar, but I'm gonna talk about sugar because I think sugar has its place. I think it's really powerful, whether it's in the form of some Sour Patch Kids here and there, or whether it's in the form of just straight up fruit or fruit juice. I think fruit juice has tons of utility. I think smoothies have tons of utility. I think they're amazing. I love dates and bananas and cherries and strawberries and blueberries. I love all that stuff. And I love apple juice. I love pineapple juice. It's just really nice to have, a wide array of foods. And now, with what I'm doing, and even what I was doing in the past, I never really felt like I was on a diet. So that's probably the main reason why Mark Smelly Bell is always dieting or always on a diet, is because I don't feel like I'm in a caloric deficit, although I must have been, right? To weigh 330 pounds and to now weigh 210 pounds, there must have been a calorie deficit somewhere along the way. That was like a 10 or 12 or 13 year process, by the way. And it's still ongoing. I'm still working on it. I'm still refining. I'm still learning. But I never felt like I was like dieting. It never felt restricted. And I also loved the food. And I loved the foods from years past when I was doing like keto and carnivore and all these different things. I love cheese. I love eggs. I love bacon. I love steak. I love all those things. I really love fat a lot. But I also like carbs a lot. And I know that you can, but I know that it's not a good idea to eat the two together because it gets very easy to overeat those things. And we end up with a traffic jam of energy and we end up gaining a lot of fat. That's where you're gonna end up with messed up triglycerides and all kinds of different things when you are blending your fats and your sugars and your carbohydrates and stuff like that together, and it ends up being in an abundance for a long period of time. So I've lost, well over 100 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off. And I'm going to continue to do that. And I'm going to continue to get in better shape. I'm going to continue to get leaner. There's going to be a point where this is going to get to be a little bit weird. There's going to be a point where my skin, because I'm starting to lose so much weight, that my skin will start to be a little strange. And I'll actually have to make a choice in terms of aesthetics on I should actually eat up a little bit to bulk up, to be a little bit bigger, to kind of stretch some of this back out again. But it's not just an aesthetic thing for me, it's a performance thing for me as well. Remember, what I want to do on the track is really important to me. Lastly, I think it's important for people to understand this. I want to completely change what I've looked like in the past. I would like to be able to completely change that. And I don't hate myself, and I never did hate myself. I never hated my body shape. I never hated my body type. I never hated anything about myself. I have a lot of confidence. I feel really good about myself. I'm very proud of the things that I've done. So it doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like some sort of eating disorder. I'm not like looking in the mirror and going, oh my God, you're so fat. This is disgusting. We got to get rid of this. None of it is ever coming from anything like that. None of it is ever coming from a hateful place at all. But when I see myself, I'm like, you know what? It would be cool. I bet you I can work on having a better V-taper. I'm starting to develop one. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Shoulders are starting to get a little wider. Shoulders starting to get a little bit better shape. Striations are starting to come out. There's more veins through the legs, more veins through the arms. Everything's starting to look pretty cool. But now I'm just wondering, like, can I take that waist in a little bit? And for those reasons, for me personally, I always do have to be on, I always need some sort of nutritional protocol of some sort. And that's the way I look at it. I look at it as being more of a nutritional protocol rather than a diet. It doesn't feel like I'm dieting. Even through the whole process, there really hasn't even been like a lot of cardio necessarily, although cardio's been playing in the background here and there with the running that I was doing for a while. I haven't run in months. It's been like 6 months since I really have run or put in some good runs, but the running will be coming back soon. And as that comes back in, that's gonna be really a bitch to kind of manage my, that's gonna be harder to manage my body composition, my body fat percentage, because the running can steal a little bit from your muscle mass. But I'm gonna be running on this thing on the Z-Tread a bunch, doing sprints and doing shorter duration stuff. And maybe only doing like a 3 to 5 mile run, maybe like once a week or something like that. So I'm not giving myself the go ahead to do any of that quite yet, maybe a little bit in August, and maybe I'll start messing with some more of that in September. But for you guys out there that want to lose weight, let's say you want to lose 20 pounds, and guess what? I got some news for you. You know how long you're going to be on a diet? You're going to be on a diet for however long it takes you to lose the 20 pounds. And then after that, you're going to continue to be on a diet because you still have to select a diet, or I need to select some sort of protocol to have some sort of guardrails to keep those 20 pounds off. That's the only way that it works. Now, yes, you could potentially move from one thing to another. We hear people talk about sustainability all the time. Oh, that's not sustainable. Well, yeah, maybe it's not, but that's cool to do something that's not sustainable, right? Isn't that like, we do that with our training, we do it with everything. So what's wrong with doing something that's not sustainable? There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, as long as you understand that when you go from doing something that's maybe intense, that you're going to do it for 3 to 6 weeks, and then after those 3 to 6 weeks, you're going to move into something that is maybe more reasonable for you to follow. But while that thing is reasonable for you to follow, it's still keeping you, it's still giving you the results that you want, right? And that's what we're hoping for over a period of time. And over a period of time, if we're doing things correctly, we should be able to make things easier and easier for ourselves, because over the years, we should be able to put on a little bit of muscle mass. And getting a little bit leaner should actually be easier. And one thing you're going to notice is that when you go from 28 to 33 to 35 to 36, you will actually just look leaner by doing next to nothing. By just doing the same. Now, you got to be somebody that's training. I mean, I'm talking to you guys. You guys have been watching the Power Project for years. You guys should understand what the score is and what's going on. So if you're lifting and you're eating your protein and doing all your things, you are just going to look better without much change in your nutrition. Now, if you're getting fatter, that's different. If you're getting fatter, then all bets are off. But if you are staying about the same, let's say you weigh 220 pounds and you go from being 28 years old to being 35 years old and you weigh about the same. If you still have the same activities in, you will start to look leaner. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know what it's called. I don't know how to define it. But if you have been doing jujitsu, or you've been cycling, or whatever these activities are that you've been doing to look in relatively good shape, if you continue to do them and you don't necessarily make these big changes to your diet, over time, if you still have these good habits intact, you will look a little leaner and leaner and leaner. And I've told this to many people like Nsima and a bunch of other people around me, and they're like, oh yeah, I kind of do notice that a little bit. Then, of course, there is like, you start to get older and you start to get, mid 40s and stuff like that. And that's when things can start to go the other way. And you got to be a little bit more diligent. You got to be a little bit more on top of things. Anyway, hopefully that describes to you guys why I'm always dieting, why I'm always doing something like that, because I just always want to be better. That's all there is to it. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.